It's almost sort of winter. Great time for a winter walkabout. Talk about water, weather, wildlife, harvest, and more. Stay tuned. Happiest New Year to you. This is early January, a great time to do walkabout because, well, we can walk about. It's supposed to be winter and we've had a very strange winter so far, but I wanted to show you a few things today about water. You see the water there? That's unusual. We only have water here at the farm, usually at the end of winter. But this year we've had some strange conditions. We had a really cold start in mid-November before we went on our tour to Europe. And so the ground froze pretty hard because we had snow, but we also had cold, a lot of cold. And so the ground right now is frozen. Even though today is above zero or above freezing, we still have some water. And I've heard people say, well, why don't you swale? Context. Context is so important in permaculture. What's our context? Go see some of the other videos where I talk about soil. Go see the Comfrey video where I show you some of the uniqueness of this sandy sand soil. There's never any water on this farm at any other time of the year unless the soil is frozen and we have either rain, melting snow, and that's it. That's the only time we get water. Look at that, there's a puddle over there in one of the lanes. See that? So that's unusual here. Swales here are a waste of time and money. In fact, they just get in the way because we could dump almost at any other time of the year. We could dump 5 tons of water and within 10 seconds it's gone. Like it just goes into the soil. So this soil is not of any interest to swale. In fact, we've had times where back at the house there, we've had water right up to the gallery or about over 30 centimeters, over a foot of water in the yard. And so, well, when it's that wet, I don't want to walk around or prune at that time of year in the water. So I go to the back of the farm where it's a little higher, it's about 1 meter higher. And so all the water really comes down to this end. And I'll be pruning back there for the whole morning, come back either at the end of the day or for lunch, and that 30 centimeters of water that's been a pond, and it's, in fact, it'll drain from there, it'll go right here because it's fairly flat. So it will go quite a distance down here, all water, all one big pond. And most times within a couple of hours, when the soil thaws enough, it's like somebody pulled a giant bathtub plug. And so the water will just drain right in and bang. The next day the soil is not necessarily dry because when the ground is frozen it doesn't warm up that fast. But there's no more water for the rest of the season, or rest of the year in fact, till the next time at this time of year or later that there will be some water standing around. So context is really important to figure out permaculture principles. And well, the first thing, observe. If your context is that you don't get water, then you don't get water piling up anywhere. If you're in a situation where swaling is useful, then maybe use it. It's interesting, you know, every practice or every technique, there are ideal places to use it. This isn't one of them. This is definitely not one of them. I'm here at the Biotope. If you want to understand this a bit, go check out the bees. So here's our native bees. We got bees. We just don't want any more honeybees. Yeah, go see that honeybee video. But I see the woodpeckers. I didn't put all these away, and the woodpeckers have been getting at the bees. You see, they've been drilling right into the logs, and they get at the larvae, because this log, if you look there, you see all those holes that are plugged. That's all full of larvae in there, bee larvae. There's a lot of them. That's why we put them behind the screen. And so, yeah, these are, I'm going to have to put them away or they're going to get demolished. That's kind of it with here. This is the time of year that the birds do use it. They use it a lot in the winter to roost in. I want to do a video for you on black knot because, oh, here's some. See this black knot? That's black knot. This is the biggest year of black knot we've ever had, and I'll do one just on that later on in the year. A lot of pruning to do, especially on these honey locusts. Look at that. That tree goes up. Yes, it's been topped right there once before, and the branches have grown back. So the support trees, there is some work to do around them. It's not just plant them. If you plant a species that will stay shrubby, for example, in a permaculture orchard context, then you may be able to not do any pruning on them. These honey locusts are definitely a tree, and we've trained them some. Here's a training wire on there. And most important now, we're starting to get really don't want to drop that. You don't want to drop your black knot to sit in the orchard for next year and start things over in the spring. But we've got our grapes have got going. Here's a grape. And it's starting to go, and it's been so nice. I think it was that abundance video this fall showed you really how the grapes, that's the picture of how we want grapes to really do well. Here's the worst example, rather the best example of a lot of black knot. That's a lot of black knot on there. So we'll have to come back and prune that out, and I'll show you how we'll do that in another video. Interesting to see some of the ground cover still so green. Look at this thyme. Even at this time of the year. Wow. Even at this time of the year, it can smell so nice. Usually at this time I come to the farm. If you don't know, we don't live on the farm. And that's a good thing. Especially if you're stuck at being at the farm and everywhere you look, you see the work to do. I've got peace of mind nowadays. I'm at home an hour away, and I know what work is to be done, but I don't see it. It doesn't bother me. This is a good time to rest, time to reflect, time to plan. This is the beginning of the year or early January. It's a great time to go over last year, look through the season, what worked, what didn't work, and consider what you're going to do differently this year. How can you do it differently? Do it 10 times faster. Do it 10 times better. That's the target. Another thing I wanted to talk about was just, what are you going to do with the harvest? Some of you have started planting. And you say, yeah, I put in some trees, I put in a few trios. Well, it doesn't take that long that you will have to start planning for the harvest, because the harvest will come. And when it comes, sometimes it really comes. Just open a little parentheses. We got a lot of grafting done. We had such a great crew this year. Spring crew and summer, fall crew of interns. And so they did some bud grafting, regrafted this whole area here, which is the area without plastic. If you saw in the, go see the virtual tour, you'll get a real good look at all the details of why and how we did. Some of you even know this is Bodog. What was I gonna say? Preparing to harvest. Yeah. Let me show you here how we had such a harvest this year. It was crazy. It was just crazy. We were able to use up all of the plums, which is the most valuable crop we have. We were able to use pretty well all the pears. So those two are what we are now planting more of. If you go see, we'll get there later, at the back, the new seeded orchard. Go see that whole series of how we put in a new seeded orchard from seed. But the ones that we really haven't fully used yet, this year anyway, are apples. And we just left trees with fruit on them. We didn't even pick them because I knew we had a full truckload of apples going for juice, and we get pressed an hour away from here. We get them pressed, and I didn't want to have to pick a little bit and have maybe a half a ton of apples extra. We already had the full truck. There's a limit to how much we could load in. And so I didn't want to overload the truck, and I didn't want to take a small load as a second trip. So I said, that's enough. So these apples are left for two things. I was hoping we could do apple cider. And these apples, we'll see, they're still in really nice shape. I mean, look at that. I do enjoy when I come to prune, and I know some of you, maybe in New Zealand or in the southern US or in warmer climes, some of you can harvest fruit in the tree 12 months of the year. Let me say something to you. If you can harvest fruit in the trees 12 months of the year, why don't you plant trees so you can eat something every month of the year? That is the ultimate goal. We really can't keep things in the tree all year round, but we could extend the season. And this year was a pretty good example how we had, and not every cultivar holds the apples well. There's a M106 rootstock. See all the fruit down and not much in the tree. This one, these are Trent. They hold the apples really well. There's a few cultivars that hold apples really well. Trent is one. Ida Red is another. Empire holds their apples quite well. And so maybe that's an option. So the idea is, this year was good because we really see which ones hold them well and how long they hold them. We can take them and press them when they're frozen to get a very little amount of juice, but that's super sweet because the sugar, really, the syrup doesn't freeze or freezes very last. So when you get them frozen at about -10, I don't know what that is, about, I'll write down what -10 is. But in those conditions, it's right because you squeeze it and you'll get just a few drops. Right now it's above 0, so these have totally defrosted. When I'm pruning, I like to be able to come around and just grab an apple. Ugh. Ugh. Very sticky because you could tell it's concentrated juice, but it's so good even now. I got all over my face. It's one of the pleasures of planting some trees is to enjoy the fruit, yes, in season, but maybe even out of season. And in this case, this is really an out of season treat. So if you can, get the most out of your fruit or plant fruit that will extend your season. That's always a consideration. Yes, you want to get early season, you want mid-season, you want late season. Those are your target ones. But can you get extended late season? Can you get fruit that will stay on the trees if they're usable, if they're good, if they can be used for something else? And in our area, we have people who have developed that whole technique of making ice cider. So ice cider is it's the same technique as ice wine. They adapted it from ice wine. The guy who developed it, Christian Bartomeff, who developed this technique, he basically adopted the same ideas as, need to wipe myself, all this sticky juice. So Christian Bartomeff developed the technique of doing ice cider. And there's two techniques. One, you press the apples late in the fall or really early winter, usually at about this time of year, when we get -10, -15, and they keep apples in the fridge, they press them, and then they cryo extract the juice that's concentrated. So what they do is they'll put them in these 1,000-liter or 450-gallon totes, and then they use the same technology that's used for maple syrup, and there's lots of maple syrup experience in these areas in this part of the world. So they simply use the same system. They run a pipeline, and then they take tubes and they stick a tube in each tote. So they tap each tote. So when it's frozen and there's some syrupy juice around them, the maple syrup, it's a vacuum system, it draws it out, and then they put it in vats, they get it to ferment, and then they make it into cider. So that technique, and there is a whole protection in the way that's done so that people don't do it in a freezer. Instead, it has to be, according to the rules, it's got to be done where you have naturally cold enough to cryo extract. Anyway, but there's another technique of doing the ice cider where, well, here's another M106, a few fruit and lots of fruit on the ground. So we didn't do a great job of cleaning up all the apples, and that's all right because we're expecting a big vol year. I'm bouncing around. I do have the habit of doing that. Let me just finish. The second way is they'll gather a fruit when they're frozen at around -10 to -15, and then they press them whole. They crush them and press them, and they get just a little bit. There's really not a lot of juice out of each apple, and they ferment that, and that's the highest end ice cider. So there's two types you can get. Certainly one type is far more expensive because you have fruit that have stayed in the trees. The other ones, the fruit are collected in the fall, are stored in fridges, and then are pressed later in the year. Just admiring some of this kiwi. Look at this. Kiwi coming right up here. So we grow originally, this is the original plants. We grew them at the base of posts, but now we've planted all our hardy kiwis at the base of the honey locusts and the black locusts. So at the base of our nitrogen fixing trees. I thought I'd see one here. Here's a honey locust. Some of them may not be very big, I just don't see them. But we got our first taste of kiwi this year, which was quite an experience. This Vera's Pride is a very unique kiwi. We're trying the new kiwis. They're yellow and ripe, and they're so ripe that we can suck the insides out of them like a mango. You gotta have fun with your food too. Yeah, that's good. Boy, that's so ripe. It's crazy.
Another one?
Yes, another one.
Here's some more.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
See how ripe that is? That's totally ripe. What is this one? I don't even remember. Oh, here's this tag. Vera's Pride. Yeah, Vera's Pride. We planted a lot more of them this year, but seeing how here we are, middle of September, that they're ripe, that will be very nice. We'll have to put them in the proper rows though. They're not in the right row.
But this is, oh.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh.
We're trying
That's
some of these
spicy.
Vera's Pride that are not ripe and finding that it's quite the taste experience.
Oh yeah.
Ripe is,
You see, it's coming. It's
ripe is delicious,
Whoa,
but
whoa.
not ripe is...
Oh,
Burning.
yeah. And I had a big bite. Oh. Oh,
So Vera's Pride means it's very, very chancy until they're ripe. That when it's ripe, it's delicious. But when it's not ripe, it tastes like hot peppers. Totally weird experience. So we haven't started pruning yet this year. Honey locusts, no, black locust. And once you have them, there's lots and lots of seed. There's enough seed right here to start a new orchard with the nitrogen fixing trees. Each one has about 10 seeds. It really doesn't take a lot to get going. Just looking at some of the overgrafts. This is a good time to check on how the trees actually did. Some trees died. Let me tell you, if you plant trees, please be at ease with the idea that some trees will die. Do you know it happens the same to us? Eventually, right? Two things are inevitable, death and taxes. So, yes, trees die just like people die, just like animals die. That's the cycle of life. I like this. Some of our eastern white cedar. You think, why are you planting white cedar in the orchard? Well, go see that habitat video I did with Jasmine. So some of these are getting ready. This is the idea of getting habitat in the orchard to allow the birds to come into the middle of the orchard, which is really the area that doesn't get a lot of bird activity in the winter especially. We did a good round with Sebastian. We put in a bunch of posts. So I did a post about it, how farmers posting and reposting, that's the real post. And so we're putting these into, the original ones have survived 40 years, these original cedar posts. And as an end post, they're just not able to do it. So we'll have to redo and put posts, one to hold the irrigation line. So in this zone, this is at the back, we have still our irrigation in the old system. And I filmed a video last year, hope to get it out this winter, on irrigation and repairing, but boy, some of these old irrigation pipes, these are 40-year-old pipes. We've since bought pipe, that I've taken all out and replaced it back with the old pipe, because the newer pipe is, to put it mildly, is crap compared to this. I mean, it lasted maybe 10 years and then it would start to leak. These have been around for 40 years and they're still doing great. Doing great. So we'll do a job at re-leveling, straightening out these wires and the pipe, and then hopefully, we'll see about this year, hopefully put the overhead in this block to do sprays, and I really like that system. I don't know if I put that in one of the videos, but oh, Bulldog is around the old fox dens. We've had fox here on the farm for 5 years with the den, and they did 3 dens. Here was the original den. There, that mound, that was the second den, and then they did one in the other row. We actually had to close it up because they did it right in the roadway, and that wasn't very practical. But we've had fox and we had chickens in the orchard at the same time, separated by an electric fence. Maybe I'll get that out at some point. Filmed a whole bunch about the chickens and their role and their importance. Did like what we'd got done last spring. We put wood chip mulch around the trees, just a small square, some with, some without cardboard. And we can still see the effect now. And the trees did really well this year. Well, certainly that contributed to giving them a great crop. This is what's left of the old organic monoculture orchard. So as trees die out in here, we don't replace them. We replace them with other species. So we've been putting in hazelnuts. We put in plums, cherries. And all these trees, we actually left the whole crop of Ida Red on the trees. You think, well, what a waste. Maybe. We've had years where we've had 50 waxwing wintering in the orchard. Well, what are you doing growing fruit for the birds? Well, birds are an important part. If we don't give them anything, then how can we expect them to be here? And I definitely want them to be here. But this is one that if I said doing Ice Cider, Ida Red, not a totally disease-resistant cultivar, one of the best keepers. And I won't recommend it in the sense because it's not disease-resistant, but using a little bit of whey, we do get a very nice crop. And oh, it's dripping already. So satisfying. Oh, I think some of them are starting to ferment in the tree. So we might see some birds flying around where they're kind of flying a little bit crooked. If the fruit ferments in the tree, it does happen. There is times where birds are seen to be flying kind of unusually. A little bit of juice won't do anything. Good to be able to walk around and kind of see what's been done. And in this case, see that up there? No, that up there. We haven't released that one yet. We'll do it for the spring. But that's an Osprey tower. Really neat. That was a great project. That got done. Here's the other end of those posts. So we just put them in leaning. We have to rewire them. you know what? When you're working on your orchard, when you're working around your fruit trees, you will be able to look and say, yeah, there's something not done. Oh, that needs to be done. Let me tell you, because I was going through my list of target goals for this year, and I often have to bring things up that I've had on the list for 4, 5, even one that's 10 years been on the list. You know what? Things don't all get done in a year. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes longer. But have them there. Consider the possibility of when is the best. Prioritize them. And then go ahead and do them. Certainly, when you have that initial zeal, and a zeal is something that it powers you. When you have the initial zeal and excitement for the project, go for it. Get as much done as you can, because eventually that initial zeal will wane and you just kind of feel a little less motivated to do all those things on the list. And then you get to a point like, yeah, you know, I've been doing this we've had the farm for over 25 years. The Permaculture Orchard, the first one's going to be 12 years this year. And I can look at things now and go, yep, that's on the list to do. Would be nice to get it done this year. But if it doesn't get done this year, I'm okay with it. But that's me. You're probably, okay, let's get to it and let's get it done. And that's why working with interns is such a blessing, because I can say there's something I'd like to get done and they go, oh, that sounds great, let's get it done. And they're pulling me along to get it done. So using the energy of other people is really great. Here's Empire. Some of these trees we did pick, but we didn't pick it all. But look at all the fruit on the ground still. So that's not what you want to do. I can show you things that we didn't do quite right. We did pick a lot of apples up, but there's still a lot of fruit down. And especially because I figured if this is a big vole year, voles running around in the grass under the trees will always prefer to eat fruit before they go ahead and eat the trunks of the trees. So having some fruit around the trees is just a little bit of insurance so that, well, if there is a lot, and we've seen a lot of voles some years, then they're not going to cause any damage to the trees. And I like that insurance. I also like the insurance of leaving low branches right down to the ground. Go see that the quick and dirty video for pruning. Maybe get the pruning course. It's coming to time that if you're looking and thinking of pruning, you do want to learn what to do. Here's a tree, and this will happen too. This one knocks over with the load of fruit. And that happens when you get a lot of fruit. That's a lot of weight. And with the wind, it will sometimes knock them over. Especially that was a tree that's, the trunk was definitely damaged. Here's the seeded orchard. And I'll show you a clip before I went to Europe, how this was all snow covered, and even just 3 days ago it was snow covered, and we've had a mild spell. It's normal to have a January thaw in our area. Doesn't always melt all the snow. So the fruit are in there with the seeds. And we'll see how this turns out. I'll have an update of a few of the videos I've been working on. A lot of videos filmed from last year that I haven't released all of them. So there are some more coming. Some will you think, well, that's not winter time. This is one of the few that I'll film in the winter, mainly because it's not so much fun to film outside when it's 10 below zero and the batteries don't last so long. So took advantage of today's supposed to be about 4 degrees. That's warm for this time of year, really warm. And so I can be without my gloves on. And so that's nice for a change. Red. What was red? Apple. Red is apple. Just funny to see. Here we are at the edge of the seeded orchard. And here's a hole from where we dug up the roots of one of the big apple trees that was here. It's just funny to see a puddle. It's really funny here to see water. So water is one of these things that we really rarely get. Here's another bit. Some more trees were taken out here. Some of you say, well, it's normal to have water. No, here it's not normal. Here it's neat to have water sitting around because it's so unusual. It only happens a bit in the year. See that bit of water back there? That's totally unusual. Rare to see water sitting around on the ground here. So it requires conditions of frozen soil in order to have water. Still have some fence there from when we had sheep, and I would like to get some more animals back here, so that's why I'm not tearing up that fence. Hazelnuts did okay. Not as great as we've had 2 years ago. They did pretty well, but there was a lot of blue jays feasted on them this year. Really a lot. Here's a tree that I'll have to identify. That's one of my jobs this winter, is to tag. But they got really small, a lot of crop, but a lot of small apples. I don't know what that one is. Had one, I think this is one right here. And I definitely will graft more of this one. This is blue Permain. It was the first year that we had a bit of a crop. And when I took these, I just took them to market. Did a bit of a farmer's market. And when people tried this one, they just snapped up everything that I had. So sometimes you get some cultivars that, for whatever reason, they're noted for their taste, and that one was definitely one that was noted for its taste. So blue Permain, if you're thinking of, oh, what can I grow? It's not a disease resistant one, but boy, for taste. Here's another Trent. I know some of you must be thinking, that's terrible, leaving all those fruit in the trees. What was I telling you in the beginning about plan for harvest? Because there will be a day where you'll start to get some serious harvest, and it comes in a hurry. And it can come in a big year. You can have, well, let me just say that when fruit becomes a problem, when the amount of fruit becomes a problem, that's a good problem, but it still is a problem. And so we had 2 weekends, we gave apples away for free, and people still didn't pick. It was just too much, and people had picked and purchased so much fruit, especially apples up to then, that they didn't need anymore, even though it was free. And we had one of our biggest membership years. We accepted the most members this year, and it still wasn't enough. So that's a good problem, but it can be a problem. Look at these things, did really well. These are Gumi and Russian, what is it? Gumi or autumn olive. Yeah, autumn olive, and that's the growth of the year, almost 2 meters, or more than 2 meters. So these did really well, and That's the original plant. These were from Whiffle Tree. Oh, there it is. A little berry left. Autumn olive. You think, why are you planting that? It's a weed in some areas. Well, certainly not here. And yeah, interesting. Interesting fruit. So yeah, it's one of the nitrogen fixers we're starting to use. We do want to try all the nitrogen fixers. Certainly honey locust, black locust. We have, here's one, Kentucky coffee tree. I don't know if that's, well, some people say it is. We tried it. It's definitely a bean producing tree. So as a general rule, the bean producing ones, the legume family ones, should be nitrogen fixing. Try to have all of them. Really loved the effect and the results this year. Here it was mowed afterwards, but these rows had been roller crimped. That was a success. Boy, that's something that I definitely will change from now on. We're not mowing in the summer anymore. Minimal mowing just for access when we have our open days, but we're not mowing systematically through the orchard anymore in the summer. So we mow May, and then from middle to end of June right up till early August, we're only roller crimping the rows, and that has made a huge difference. We had a really dry spell, 5 weeks without rain here. That's, for us here, that's a dry spell. I know some of you go, we've had 5 years of drought. Well, okay, I'm not in a desert. You can see the amount of trees here. If we don't even if we don't water, we're going to get trees, and we're in a very sandy site here. So roller crimping results has been, after 5 weeks of dry, we still had green grass, which in the past, if we mowed, we could mow in June and not have any green in the rows right up till middle to end of August. Well, that's July, that's over 2 months that the sun is out and we're not capturing any carbon, because once you mow this soil in the summer and you don't give it water, it's going to just dry out and it's going to go dormant. So if you have areas that can grow grass, even in orchard situation, vineyard situation, try roller crimping. Go see the mow and blow roller crimp comparison, and it's a great technique. I'm so glad. Developed by Rodale Institute. We got it actually from France, because one of the orchards where we visit and teach had been using it, and they said it cut their water use by half. And now I really see, absolutely, it'll cut the water use. The soil will hold moisture much better. So go see that. Try and adapt that technique for your orchard this coming year. Seeing this little, see that little creature there? See this little tree here? That's a Korean pine. We bought a few, put them in. They're slow to get going. We'll see, maybe 15 years from now, we'll start harvesting some nuts out of them. Some things, you gotta be nuts to plant. It can take a long time, so don't put a whole orchard of 15 years down the road producing trees. That's not very sound. Put some short term, medium term, and long term. Just mix it up. Certainly don't put in a monoculture. Please go see that video. Monoculture is crazy. I think we should say, when we say monoculture, we should say monoculture madness. It's madness. It's madness. Look at that, I'm having to walk in water. Do I walk on water? Well, sort of. Oh, been working on a video about our vegetable beds. That's going to be neat. We'll see how well that technique turns out in the years to come. Don't be afraid to try things. I smell a skunk. I'm looking where my dog is. Not a good sign to have the dog running around and smelling skunk. I've had it happen more than once. One year, 3 times in the year she got skunked. Yeah, it's probably coming out from under the biotope. Well, that area is for wildlife, so that's where the wind is coming from. So there can be a skunk in there. There probably is. I do want to show you a little bit about the chickens. And so we had laying hens all this year. And we decided as a first time ever to keep our hens over winter. Normally they either overwinter in the freezers or we give them to other people just to have them because we can't keep them over winter, or we haven't tried to keep them over winter. This year we decided to try because we could, and so the hens have been really happy, and in fact they're still laying eggs, which is kind of wild because a few times we've come and the eggs were totally frozen. Look, here they come, the greeting party walking on the ice. I'll show you their very simple setup. We took one of our pens and just put just a few hoops here to make a greenhouse. Put some clear plastic so we weighed down the edges of it, and we used these clips. There. So we used these clips to hold it in. Showing you the chickens. So I took out their feeders. They got a heated water bowl. They got their laying boxes, which they don't lay in. They got the roosting perches. And they got the chickens in here. And we put this foil that we used to wrap the beehives in. So we had quite a bit of it. And they come in and sleep. And so I give them clean bedding every time I come. And they've done really well. They're looking good. Their feathers are nice. Hey, you happy with it here? They do like pecking my legs and my feet. I've also been working on a video. We visited in France. We visited Hugo, Margot, and Gaspard. They had a farm together, and Hugo had a really nice setup for his laying hens. So I gotta make sure. Gotta always think, is this fence on or not? Because you know, if you touch an electric fence like this, it's quite a revolting experience. Or another one is, you get a charge out of this. Enough puns. So that's the look. Oh, maybe I'll just show you the grapes. That's the look at what we've got going. Sebastian did a nice job of setting up this walkway while we were in Europe, and at the end he put in a drain. So right under that styrofoam is actually a drain, a pit drain, backfilled with rocks, mainly to not get a lake here, because of all things this is the lowest spot on the farm. Type 1 design error, you do not put the building in the lowest spot, and this happens to be the lowest spot. Fortunately, water drains, but in the spring or late winter, the water does come up. It's actually gone in the house a couple of times. So this drain it's working today really well, and it should work in the spring when the snow starts to melt. See, I'm even thinking we're gonna get snow Imagine that, eh? We're not gonna have no snow all winter. I went skiing already, but what a difference. This morning when I left in Montreal, they were doing snow removal on our street. There was enough snow, definitely enough snow. And I was quite amazed. An hour from Montreal, traveling southwest, and gee, this area, look at the cornfields, not any different. I mean, there's nothing left almost in this. We have virtually nothing left. But one I wanted to show you was all the grapes left. So the idea was maybe we would make some ice wine, but I think they're past their prime now. Probably, yeah, they don't look too good. So all harvests have a timing element. You want to get the harvest when it's best to get it. This is our showpiece row here, this first row. So we actually on purpose left a few trees with the fruit in them. This was one we didn't even bother picking for juice. We just left them. And look at the fruit on the ground. So it's having a lot of harvest can be a problem, but you can take it as an opportunity. These were our well, I say showpiece rows. These were our indicator rows. People driving by the road right here, they drive by and they see all the fruit in the trees. So we didn't have to really put a sign that we have apples, because you can see the apples right in the trees. So use that to your advantage. Design trick, I've mentioned it before. Put your last harvest row right along the roadway, because people driving by, if they're looking to come pick, they will see fruit in the trees. So our last pears are in here, we have plums in here, and we have latest apples in here. Just as a way of advertising that we have fruit for sale. And we had a lot of fruit for sale. We actually sold the most amount of apples for deer we've ever sold. It was just overall it was an amazing year. Like, it was an amazing year. Some of you say, yeah, it was a terrible year. You know what? Not every year is great. Not every year is terrible. Fortunately, sometimes we get two in a row, too good or too bad. And that happens. If you can't weather that, then maybe don't start this as an adventure, because there will be years where you'll go, oh my God, like I say, this year it was amazing. The abundance was really great. I don't want to take a skate on this ice here. So some years are good, some years are not so good. Plan, well, I won't tell you how to foresee your season. I don't plan expecting a great year anymore, because the disappointment when you don't get a great year is tough on the psyche. Maybe you want to see that I want to quit video too, because there are times where things don't go according to plan. It doesn't work out. But there are years like this where it seems to make up for so many bad years. And so I always found it's easier to set my expectation lower for the things that really are much out of my control. I know 2020 is likely not going to be as big a year because we had a huge year this year. So we tend to not have two big years back to back. So that's fine. I'm gearing up thinking, all right, there'll be less. How much less? Well, maybe nothing. I'm not gearing up for nothing, but it's possible. So in my head, even if at this time next year I'd go, yeah, we had nothing, I'm already okay with that. You think, well, don't you rely on it? No, I don't rely on it. It's a bonus. But when it's a nice bonus like this year, it's really nice. So you have to evaluate your situation. If you rely on it, well, there's lots of farmers who rely on their crop every year and then they don't get it one year. So what are you going to do? Are you going to borrow from the bank to make your living? Are you going to put up reserves for the years where you don't have a good year or you have a disastrous year? That kind of year to year, we're not working indoors, we're working outdoors, we're working with nature. And you know what? Some years are going to be like 2019 and you're going to go, wow, that will go in the record books. And some years won't be so amazing. I hope this helped. I really wish you the absolute best on your project. Most of all, I wish you grow. And the growth happens through the ups and downs, the good and the bad. Don't expect every year to be the same, but let your project help you grow in life's lessons. Thanks for watching. All the best for 2020, and that this would be a decade of permaculture. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. Thanks for watching. Intrigued? Check out the virtual tour of the Permaculture Orchard. Have trees already? Pruningcourse.com. Subscribe, please. Check out some of the other videos or playlists. There's more to come. Stay tuned. Bye. So we might see some birds flying around where they're kind of flying a little bit crooked.